you're looking to dive into topics on how to live a happier, healthier, more fit and long lifespan, then you've come to the right podcast. Livin the Dream with me, Coach Damian Evans. Together, we will explore the topics on all things health, fitness, and wellness. Together, we will be lifelong learners on this journey to living the ultimate dream. What up, Dream Team? Coach D here, coming at you from beautiful, sunny San Diego. And in today's episode, we're going to be answering questions asked by my favorite people in the world. You, the Livin the Dream Team. We're going to be breaking down a few commonly asked questions, rapid fire style, and I'll be offering my advice, my experience, and my opinions, and if necessary, whatever science-based facts that I find that will help the majority of people who have the same burning questions. If you'd like to submit a question to be answered on a Q&A episode, you can DM me on Instagram at CoachDamian_SD, or you can email me at DamianE585@gmail.com. Damian is spelled DAMIEN, E585@gmail.com. And I'll make sure that I can get to as many of the commonly asked questions as I can. Before we get to the Q&A episode, I want to start by thanking the sponsors of this podcast. And this podcast is brought to you by Eat the Frog Fitness. Eat the Frog Fitness, the most personalized group fitness experience you will find. All Frog Squad members are assessed every 8 weeks to see and track progress. The program is backed by science-based periodization, which means that your sessions are designed to progress your intensity over time, as well as programmed in recovery weeks, which are sweet. Check out any of the Eat the Frog Fitness locations in Southern California, and if you mention the Livin the Dream podcast, you're going to receive your first 2 training sessions complimentary. Another one of our sponsors is Dirt Food. Dirt Food, healing and delicious superfoods made by hand and made with love. Check out eatdirtfood.com and use the discount code DIRTYDAMIAN for 10% off your entire order. Dirt Food, amazing superfood, cancer-fighting ingredients, all in granola, dirt balls, dirt spice, even something for your dog. That's Dirty Damian, discount code for 10% off your entire order. Check it out, eatdirtfood.com. And now on to our first question of the day. Our first question comes from Allie Lancaster. Allie asks, I live a very go, go, go life. I know that my stress level is higher than it should be. You say that stress management is one of the 4 pillars of fat loss. What are some things that I can do throughout my day to help manage my stress? Now, I absolutely love this question because I feel like this question can apply to almost every single person that talks to me about their lifestyle struggles. If you're listening to this right now, you're a growth-minded person already. You probably are stacking this, listening to this podcast with something else you're doing, whether it's driving or exercising or walking the dog or chores. Whatever it is, you probably also live the go, go, go life, at least through certain periods of time. Stress can be many things. It can manifest itself in the forms of your thoughts. It can be physical stress like exercising, or maybe you have a very physically demanding job. It can be an accumulation of daily responsibilities that maybe we don't want, or even that we may have just put on ourselves. Stress can be positive, stress can be negative. But one thing that we know is that chronic stress, long-term stress, whether it's minimal or just always there in the background, or massive and it's up in your face, you're in fear at all times. We know that chronic long-term stress is related to some of the most terrible health issues that we see today. Depression, heart disease, hypertension, obesity, the list goes on. Managing that stress is so vital if we want to live our dream lives. Now for me, I live my life by the theory of hormesis. So hormesis, voluntarily putting myself through small, manageable stresses that I take the time to recover from. Allowing me to recover allows me to become more resilient and stronger than before with whatever stress that I put on my body or whatever stress I put on my mental capability. It's the what doesn't kill you makes you stronger theory. Hormesis. It's pretty awesome. However, this only works if we are able to appropriately recover from the stresses that we encounter. So I'm going to list some tips, tricks, and hacks that I use myself to help me modulate and recover from the stresses that I either voluntarily put on myself or, like a lot of us experience, some tips, some tricks and hacks on how to recover from the stresses that we might not have much control over. Now, the first hack I want to tell you about is something that you can do anywhere. You can do it anytime, at a moment's notice, when you start to feel that stress accumulate or you start to feel that tension rising in your body. It's called the physiological sigh. And I got this from Professor Andrew Huberman, who is a neuroscientist professor at Stanford University. He is one of my favorite health and fitness expert follows. He has a great Instagram. He has a great podcast called the Huberman Lab Podcast, and he offers a no-cost education to the masses on some very, very complex topics. And he does it in ways that are easily digestible for the common person just looking to explore more on topics of neuroscience and health. If there's any fitness professionals out there, I highly recommend checking out Professor Huberman. Follow his Instagram, follow his podcast. He's awesome. Now, he talks a lot about this breathing technique that you can do that takes less than 10 seconds, but you can always do it longer for more rounds if you want to, which has been proven to help take control of your physiology, even when it seems like things are going crazy around you. So, a physiological sigh. This differs from what you may think of when you think of a typical sigh, which is just an exhale. A physiological sigh is actually a double inhale followed by an exhale. And I'll show you how to do this in just a second. A physiological sigh is super important because it promotes the correct balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your lungs and in your bloodstream. And this is something that's hardwired into us. We don't have to think about doing this. In fact, the physiological sigh happens to you when you sleep. It happens to you periodically through the day, and you may not even be aware of it. But after I show you, you might be a little bit more aware and become hyper aware on just how often it happens to you. I actually used to get made fun of by people that I lived with because I would randomly let out this big exhale. It would be out of nowhere, and people would look around at me and be like, "What's wrong?" I would be like, nothing's wrong at all. My body just wanted to do that, I guess." And they would look at me like I'm weird or annoying, and we would get back to what we were doing. And as I look back on that, I just marvel at the way that the body just knows what to do. It knows what to do at the right moment if we just let it do its thing. It's so super interesting to me. Every once in a while, these neurons in the brain cause us to do this double inhale and exhale. But what causes this? Well, Professor Huberman says that typically when the carbon dioxide levels get too high in the lungs and the bloodstream, when the carbon dioxide level gets too high, that carbon dioxide level then triggers a different set of neurons that triggers the sighing neurons to promote the type of breathing behavior that is a double inhale exhale. What's so incredible about all of this, and what really has me fired up about breath work, and I do think that this is going to be a huge popular trend in health here in the near future, is that one of the only automatic or autonomic processes in the body that we can take control over is your breath. We can't tell your heart to beat. Well, thank God, that would be sucky. We can't tell our food to digest. That would be really annoying. But we can control how we breathe. Because we have this incredible organ called the diaphragm, which is made of skeletal muscle, just like a bicep or a calf muscle. In fact, humans and other mammals are the only animals that have this muscle that can control their breathing in this way. So, if you're feeling too stressed, or if you want to calm down super quickly, doing this physiological sigh is scientifically proven to have huge benefits. So I want you to do this with me. You can do this sitting, standing, eyes open, eyes closed, literally anywhere and anytime. Except for maybe underwater, I guess. Don't do that. It helps me to do this with my eyes closed, and I like to do it sitting down. But if you can't do that right now, no worries. Just do it where you're at. So in just a second, we're going to do a couple of rounds, but really, even just one time will have an impact on you. What you want to do is you want to take this deep inhale breath in, and then at the top of that inhale, you want to take another second small sip of air. Just a small sip. The second inhale doesn't need to be much. And then make your exhale longer than both of those inhales took combined. Ideally, those inhales will only be through your nose, and the exhale can be through the nose or through the mouth. I personally prefer to do everything through my nose. Professor Huberman says that he likes his exhale through his mouth. But if you struggle to breathe through your nose at all, you can do this through your mouth the whole time. It's going to work as well. Ideally, nasal breathing is best. But that's a giant topic for another day. Check out the book Breath by James Nestor. And there's another guy, Patrick McEwen, who's really great with breath. Check out his book. So here's an example of what it sounds like. And then we're going to do 3 rounds together. And the goal here is just to be aware of how you feel before and then after. So it should sound like this. The inhale should be, and then the exhale. So it's an inhale deep, fill the lungs, fill the belly, and then I snuck in just a little bit of air on the second inhale, and then the exhale was deep, extended, and longer than the inhales combined. That part's super important. You want the exhale to be longer than the inhale. Okay, here we go. Together now. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Sneak in another inhale and long exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, big deep breath in. 4, 3, 2, 1. Another little inhale and then a long exhale. Relax, release. 3, 2, 1. Last one. Biggest deep breath in you can. Fill your lungs, fill your belly, everything expanding. One little last sip of air and a long, extended, relaxed exhale as much as you can out. And then control your breathing back to normal. Now, how do you feel? Amazing, right? It's an immediate release of tension. It's an immediate awareness of self and mind and body. I literally do this anytime I start to feel just a little bit of stress building inside of me. That pattern of breathing is the physiological sigh, and it differs from any other controlled breathing pattern. There are so many, countless. You could fill books with the amount of different breathing patterns there are. It is the pattern of breathing that promotes the correct balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the lungs and the bloodstream. So this is something I would suggest you implement. One thing that I do want to note here is that your heart rate is going to affect your stress levels. So when your heart rate is go, 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 it's really high, that's going to affect your stress levels. And one round of this physiological sigh probably won't be enough to drop your heart rate. So if you do have the time and you do notice that it's your heart rate that's really high and amplified, just take the time to do 3, 4 rounds of this, or maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes, and set a timer on your phone and just do a couple of these, making it as long as you can with your inhales, as long as you can with your exhales. And yes, maybe take a little bit more time if your heart rate is the main factor of your stress. Let's move on to another one of my hacks for managing stress. And it's very slow, very low intensity movement in nature. Slow, low intensity movement in nature. Maybe it's a walk on the beach, a slow hike through the forest, or sitting on the grass, stretching in the park. But the combination of movement, nature, and sunlight essentially always makes me feel de-stressed, and I can guarantee that it probably has the same effect on you. I'm not talking about a workout, not even close to a workout. This is intentional movement that is focused more on restorative and relaxing purposes. Maybe you add some chill music, or you listen to the sounds of nature. I know a lot of time the number one reason people say that they can't do this is that they lack time. But this doesn't have to be a long walk. This doesn't have to be super far. If you really knew how impactful this was, you would create the time to do this. 5, 10 minutes, whatever you have. You could even do this with your family as an afternoon family ritual. Maybe after dinner, you take a walk around the block. If you live in the city, maybe you go to the rooftop and you enjoy the view and you work on being together, or just focusing on your breath together, or recapping the day together, talking about your wins. You could find a park near you that you can either walk or ride a bike to. You could do it after work. It could just be 10 minutes. It could be an hour, whatever you want it to be. And stack it with other things that you may want to do. There is time if you make time and if it's important to you. And I can tell you right now, this stuff is super important. You will feel the difference, but only once you've made it a part of your routine. One time, sure, that's going to make you feel good in the moment. One time and done, it'll be fleeting, just like exercise. I believe this type of practice of intentional calm movement in nature with sunlight if possible, I believe that it's cumulative, just like a good diet. One salad is not going to get you to your health goals, but a long-term healthy diet full of whole foods and it's balanced, that's going to get you some results. It's cumulative like exercise or like small habits that you're going to compound to get you to your health and fitness goals. Over time, these small changes but consistent changes are what's going to make things better. Let me know if you need any ideas on how to make this happen. If it's important to you, you can find the time to make this happen. And the last little tip that I'm going to do for this question is at night. I find one of the biggest and best things that helps me unwind, de-stress from the day, and stop worrying about the random things that I have done that day or that's happened to me. The best thing that I've done, that I've started to do to help me unwind at night is Yin Yoga and Yoga Nidra. Yin Yoga is Y-I-N Yoga, and I've talked about this before. And Yoga Nidra is Yoga N-I-D-R-A. Yin Yoga has been a game changer for me. It allows me to slow down my day. And in the Eastern culture, you're going to hear about yin and you're going to hear about the yang of life. Yin and yang. Basically, the meaning of yin and yang is the universe is governed by this cosmic duality, this set of two opposing and complementary principles of cosmic energy that can be observed in nature. Generally speaking, yang or yang is characterized as outward energy, masculine, hot, bright, and positive, whereas yin is characterized as inward, feminine, still, dark, and negative. Different than negativity, but the negative side. I see yin as the slowdown and the chill part of life. It's the internalization of things. And if you know me personally, you know that I live my life pretty much all yang or yang. I'm always living this outward energy, this moving 100 miles per hour and just living the typical go, go, go life that Allison Lancaster's talking about. Yin Yoga allows me to slow down and work on balancing that out. It's all about balance. What Yin Yoga is you're going to get into a deep stretch. Maybe it's a forward fold, like you're going and you're taking your chest to your thighs in a seated position with your legs extended out in front of you, like you're doing a toe touch, but all the way forward folding. Or it could be a glute stretch, like a pigeon stretch. It could be a side bend where you're laying on the ground and you're making your body this big banana shape. And this isn't a stretch that you hold for like 30 seconds. No, you're holding a Yin Yoga stretch for 3 to 5 minutes. You focus on stillness, you focus on your breath, and you focus on just letting time do its thing and just letting go. It's amazing. Not only does it allow my muscles to take a break from working all day and allows them to stretch and helps me with recovery, but it also takes me places inward that I never knew really existed in my days of living that crazy go, go, go life. I highly recommend checking out Yin Yoga at nighttime before you go to bed. Here's what I do. I select a Yin Yoga video from YouTube on my phone, and I lay out a yoga mat and I put this huge soft blanket on top of it in my living room. You don't really want to put this on your huge bright light TV. So if you use a TV or a laptop, just make sure you decrease the brightness of the screen all the way down because that's going to diminish some of the effects that it has on helping you with sleep. The less blue light from your screens, the better here. It's going to help you guide you into a more deeper and restorative sleep. Now, you could always do Yin Yoga at any time of the day, especially in the mornings before you start your day, but I definitely prefer to do it at night to de-stress from the day and to help me get better sleep. So I'll choose a 30 to 60 minute yoga video, depending on how much time I have, and I'll share some of my favorites in the show notes of this Q&A episode if you want to just check those out. I have this guy that I like to watch. He's one of my favorite YouTube Yin Yoga instructors. His name's Travis Elliot. He not only has great stretch selections, but while he's instructing you, he has this really cool way of educating you as to what's happening in your body and what you should be feeling and where, and just makes the overall experience more soothing, relaxing, and enjoyable. One of my go-to Yin Yoga flows is his Super Spine class. He focuses 45 minutes just on the spine. And your spine is your trunk, right? It's your foundation of everything in your body. So back pain, neck pain, pain in your limbs, these things may benefit from working on the mobility and flexibility and full ranges of motion of your spine. I'm definitely going to include the link to that YouTube flow in the show notes. Check it out and let me know what you think. If you do yin yoga, you will also notice less aches and pains throughout your normal day, and you'll feel better in your workouts. And with feeling better, you're going to perform better because of your increased flexibility and range of motion that you've earned and acquired. So yin yoga, that's my first part of my wind down routine. But as soon as I finish my yin yoga flow, the next part is yoga nidra. And yoga nidra kind of freaked me out, to be honest. It freaked me out a little bit when I first did it. It's not what it sounds like. There's literally no stretching, no movement. You're not doing what the typical person thinks of when they think of yoga. Yoga nidra is also called yogic sleep. It's a state of consciousness between waking and sleeping, like the going to sleep stage, typically induced by guided meditation. Now, stick with me here. I know if you're not used to this type of stuff, your brain can immediately go, oh, here we go. This is that hippie woo-woo crap. But trust me, I get it. I was there at one point. Check this out. It has been said that 1 hour of yoga nidra can be equivalent to 4 hours of deep sleep, the most restorative sleep stage. Because when you do yoga nidra, you are going through all of the brainwave stages, but in a compressed time frame. Also, they've hooked up Buddhist monks to a medical brain scanning machine, and they found that they could, when the monks meditated for just 20 minutes, their brainwaves were getting the same benefits that we get from our deep sleep stages, but amplified by multiple factors. I'm telling you, if you feel super stressed, if you have trouble sleeping, if you're one of those people that stay up late at night with your mind just going 100 miles per hour, wandering for hours, we all know how frustrating that can be. You have to give yoga nidra a shot. For me, the combination of yin yoga straight into yoga nidra is an instant relief, instant relaxation, and literally I go to bed instantly. I have a sleep tracker that I use, and it tracks my activity, my sleep, my recovery, my readiness. It tracks how fast I fall to sleep, which is called sleep latency. My tracker is called the Oura Ring, O-U-R-A, and I absolutely love it. I highly recommend people checking out this company. They're amazing. And I can get you $30 off if you let me know. I can send you a link, depending on when you're listening to this episode, of course. But yeah, let me know if you check out Oura Ring and you want to buy one. Let me know first, and I'll get you a little discount code. But the reason I bring up the Oura Ring is that when I do this combination of yin yoga and yoga nidra, my sleep score skyrockets. More deep sleep, less time awake. It's incredible. I know this original question was about stress hacks, but I'm telling you, if you can end every single day like this and wake up feeling refreshed from a night of good quality sleep, your stresses will slowly, or maybe even not so slowly, start to diminish, and you will feel the difference. So to summarize my answer for this question, short-term relief for stress, the physiological sigh and your breath work. Mid-term stress, go outside, movement, nature, sunlight. And then long-term stress, yin yoga and yoga nidra. Try these 3 hacks out. Let me know what you think. Moving on to question number 2 from Ben Davis. How do I get my family to be more healthy? My parents, my close relatives are all very overweight, and they struggle with these health conditions. I love them and I want them to feel better. What can I do to help them? Now, here is a question that I get asked all the time. I see people who start their fitness journey and they get really consistent and they see firsthand what it can do to their own life, how it positively changes their lives, how they feel so much better, how they have more confidence in themselves, how everything in their lives are enhanced. And when they experience this for themselves, they want to help the people in their lives experience the same amazing benefits that they have found. They come to me and they say their partner or their children or their coworker or their parents, they want them to be healthier. How can I get them to be healthier? And this question is so noble because you know that it comes from such a good place. It comes from a place of love. And every single time someone asks me this question, this is the only response that I can give. And the response is, you can't. You can't change them. You can't get them to be healthier. As much as you care, as much as you want it for them, you cannot do it for them. And then I see the look in that person's face every time I give this response, and I hate giving it, but I'll tell you why this has to be the answer. No matter how impactful you are in someone's life, no matter what role you play, no matter how much influence you believe that you have on someone, you can't change a person's lifestyle habits for them. You can't convince them to do something that they haven't decided that they're ready to do for themselves. Health, fitness, nutrition. For the most part, we already know pretty much what needs to be done in order to get ourselves going in the right direction and making healthy decisions. We pretty much know for the most part. But for those of you who have listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that it's not really about any of those things. It's about lifestyle changes. It's about changes in everyday small behaviors and habits. And you just cannot be the change that needs to occur in order for them to make that happen. Not even for your favorite person in the world. They must be the ones that decide that it's time to completely change who they are and start making changes to the life that they live. Because that's what it takes for that person to find a different place than they are right now. I mean, sure, you could convince them to do a short-term diet with you. Sure, you could be this person's swole mate and motivate them to work out for a short period of time. Sure, you could hold their hand and micromanage every little thing that they do, but for how long? Eventually, if they do not make the changes themselves, they're going to continue on with the habits, the behaviors, the daily lifestyle choices that they want to live, and the results of that will get them exactly back to where those choices got them originally. It's a really sucky answer to a really righteous question. I already know this. However, are you ready for the good news? There is good news here. I'm definitely not saying that there's nothing that you can do. I'm saying that you can't change them. That doesn't mean that there's nothing that you can do to help. The one thing that I tell every single person that asks me this question is, the best thing that you can do is to lead by example. Lead by example. Live your life, showing your entire network what working on your health, fitness, and wellness can do to increase everything about you. You can set the standard, and you can be the case study, the N of one experiment that may motivate them to want to make the changes in themselves. And once they're ready, once they are like, oh my gosh, this person has it figured out, I'm going to reach out to them. Once they reach out to you, that's when you're ready to help them. You have a game plan. You have a game plan of support and encouragement, and it's already set. You're just waiting for them to ask. You can then guide them and show them the path that you have taken. You can educate them with the efforts that work so well for you, and you can help them avoid the mistakes, the obstacles, the challenges that you may have encountered along your own journey. You can help point them to the experts to follow in order to get educated with the answers that they're searching for. You can help be there to weather the times when they run into those barriers, those setbacks, those failures. They're going to happen, and you can be there to support them. But you can only do this once they have decided that it's time. So become the fitness and health-focused person in your network. Be that guy. Be that girl. Live the life that you think will motivate them to come to you when the time is right, and be consistent. But have balance. Show them that they don't have to be 100% dialed in to see the results. That can be a mountain for someone to climb. If they think that they have to do this, that, everything perfectly, show them that there's balance. They just have to do one little thing. Start really small. And then start to substitute some good habits for some not so healthy habits. And be ready. When they come to you, have a game plan set. And be that support system that will not only help them, but will probably in some way come back and enhance your journey as well. Okay, hopefully that helped a little bit. I know it's not necessarily the answer that everyone wants to hear, but I promise it's true. Let's get to the last question for today's episode and bring it back a little bit to this to training. Question number 3. I got into a fun discussion with someone online the other day, and I wanted to offer you a little bit of my thoughts on the topic. The discussion was about where should your toes be pointed in a squat? For a perfect squat, should your toes be pointing straight forward? Should they be angled out, wide, narrow? Where should your feet be? And this is a really fun topic that gets actually a lot more debate than you would think. And I think the average exerciser can benefit from hearing some of the reasons why. So as a trainer, as trainers, you have to go through a certification process. And most certifications teach some form of a movement screening process. And what that is, okay, let's say a client comes in and they're looking for a personal trainer. Well, that trainer doesn't know what that client's strengths or weaknesses are, so they put them through a movement screen or a movement assessment. They test their posture, their shoulder mobility, their spine mobility, what their hips are doing and their ankle mobility. What is this person really good at, and where are their deficiencies? Most certifications do a squat assessment, and most of us back in the day were taught to give this screen with the person's feet hip width apart and toes pointing forward. So that's what personal trainers were taught in this movement screen. Put that person's feet hip width apart and toes pointing straight forward. And when that person squatted, we could see if their weight shifted into their toes and they came up off of their heels, or if their hips shifted from side to side, or maybe their chest fell forward. And with that information, the personal trainer could then build a program and start with a foundation of working on that client's deficiencies. It's like building the foundation of a house. So that once that client was able to overcome those deficiencies, now that's when we can start working on strengthening and building, like creating the house on that foundation. It's a really great strategy, and it's the right strategy in my opinion. But here's why I tell you all of this. Personal trainers were taught that the way you do a squat is with your toes pointing forward. And they took that into their years of training, saying that that's the only way to squat. The reason you screen with your toes pointed forward, though, is because it's a way of standardizing the test. If every client put their feet wherever they wanted to and pointed their toes however they wanted to, how are we supposed to reassess if they're getting any progress? How are we supposed to measure up if they pass or fail the expectations? We have to have some sort of standard set. But here's the issue. When not screening and when squatting, when training, everyone's body's just a little bit different. The way that your femur bone or your big thigh bone, the way that sits in the hip capsule, that angle differs, but depending on that person's skeletal structure, depending on the length of your leg bones, and there's just so many factors. So if you tell a person to squat only with their toes forward, you could be telling that person to put themselves into a less than optimal position. Here's another point. Depending on your foot placement, whether it's a wider stance where your feet are further apart from each other, or it's a narrow stance where your feet are closer together, they're going to be targeting different lower body muscle groups. If a person only squats with their feet hip width apart and toes pointing straight forward, then they're only strengthening that one movement pattern. And they're neglecting to strengthen so many different other variable stances and other different muscle groups. And that's going to bound to create an imbalance when operating in their everyday lives. This can get to a point where imbalances occur, and if that person ever moves outside of that small window of feet hip width apart, toes pointed forward, then that's when injuries can occur. So here's my opinion on all of this. With all my years of training, my personal experiences, with the research that I've done and I've read, my opinion is any movement that is void of pain is good movement. Hear me out. Especially the lighter the lighter the load. You should be able to move your body weight in any way possible that matches the demands of your lifestyle. You should be able to squat, hinge, bend, twist, rotate, jump, all pain-free in all the different ways that the body is able to. But you have to earn it first. You have to work on building the range of motion needed to do that movement. You have to work on controlling, and you have to work on the mobility of that movement through its full range of motion. Once you have earned it, you can start to strengthen it by adding load. And then finally, if it's important to you, once you've strengthened it, you can start to add performance through explosive, powerful movements. And it's in that order. You have to find and earn your mobility. And the way that you do that is with stuff like yoga or mobility flows. If you need mobility flows, find me on YouTube, and I have a ton of mobility flows on there. What you're doing is you're putting your muscles into a fully stretched position and accessing the control of your brain to that muscle in that stretched position and in the shortened position and in all the positions in between. Being able to have your brain be able to control that muscle through whether it's stretched or shortened, that's mobility, and that's earning it. And that takes a really, really long time. With a squat, as long as all your joint angles are lined up, meaning that you have your toes pointed in whatever direction you choose, and your ankle and foot can stay neutral, and your ankle and foot doesn't roll in or out. And if your knees can line up with your pinky toes, as long as you can make all of those things happen pain-free, and you can connect to the muscles that you're trying to work, then I believe it's a good squat. So speaking of muscles, let's go over what muscles you're targeting when you place your feet in a wider stance or a more narrow stance. So the more narrow your feet are, the more that they are closer together, the more that you're going to be targeting the front of your thighs or your quads, your quadriceps. You'll notice that this is a little bit challenging, a little bit more challenging, the less mobility that you have in your ankles. So if you have tight ankles that can't move through a full range of motion, then your performance is going to be limited with this close stance variation. One way to still be able to squat narrow while you work on getting more ankle mobility with the stretches like the combat stretch, which I've talked about on previous episodes. I have links to it, but you can just YouTube combat stretch and you'll see what I'm talking about. One way to be able to do this narrow squat and take your ankle mobility out of the equation is to elevate your heels on a board or a plate so that your toes are on the ground and your heels are about 2 inches higher, so elevated. If you search heel elevated squats on YouTube, you'll see what I mean, heel elevated squats. This is a great quad focused squat, and I highly recommend if you're looking to strengthen the front of your thighs, do this heel elevated squat and then also work on your ankle mobility so you can one day be able to do it without those heels quite so elevated. Now let's talk about the wider you take your stance, the further apart your feet, the more glutes and the more outside of the hips that you're going to target. So think sumo squats. The wider you take your stance, the more booty that you're going to target. You just have to make sure that when you take this wider stance, your toes are going to start to angle outward a little bit more, and the knee is going to follow suit. The closer you take your feet in together, the more that you can point your toes forward. I'm going to include some pretty interesting articles and a study that I found on this subject if you'd like to dive in a little bit deeper. But my takeaway message is that you should be able to train your body in all different types of movements and all different types of ways. Wide stance, close stance, toes angled, toes forward, feet offset. Maybe one's a little bit in front of the other or behind the other. Split stances for sure, like lunges. Work on making your lower body a resilient, strong, adaptable force that can move in any way that our lives require us to move. Now, if it causes pain, step back and ask why. We have a whole masterclass episode on should you avoid exercises if they hurt. Go and listen to that if you haven't listened to it yet. We also have a whole masterclass episode on how to get better at bodyweight movements. Check that out if you're looking to get better at bodyweight pain-free squats and lunges. I'll include those two episodes in the articles that I'm talking about and the study in the description of this Q&A episode. And that's going to be it for the last question for today's episode. Again, if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer, you can DM me on Instagram at CoachDamien_SD, or you can email me at damiene585@gmail.com. And I'll make sure that I can get to as many of the most commonly asked questions as I can. All right, Dream Team, that's it for today. Please share with me any knowledge, thoughts, or questions you may have on today's topic. I'll make sure to answer and discuss on the next episode. You can ask your questions in the comments section or message me on any of the social media platforms. Also, I would be so thankful if you shared this episode with any of your friends or family that may be able to benefit from today's podcast. I would love it if you could do me a solid and screenshot this podcast and share it on your social media platforms and just write one takeaway, one aha moment that you got from this episode. This will help me know what's really valuable to you, and so I can keep the good information coming. And it also lets your network know if this podcast is worth a listen to them. Thank you so much for listening and learning here with us on the Livin the Dream podcast. We are so grateful for you being a part of this lifelong learning journey. If you have any topics you'd like to discuss, please let us know in the comments or by messaging me on Instagram at CoachDamien_SD. Be kind to someone today, smile at someone today, and leave every person you come into contact with better than before. Until next time, friends, keep living the dream.